Good afternoon, Trinity. I hope all is well with you. Today's devotional, we're going to the garden. I'm calling all gardeners out there. Anybody who's got a garden, anybody who likes vegetables, anybody who eats vegetables, or just food in general. This is applicable to you. But let's get started. Is anyone having trouble with those stinking squash bugs yet? As hard as I try, I cannot kick those squash bugs. I can do everything I can to spray for them, to squish them when I'm out there, but they will not go away. You see, before the arrival of the squash bugs, my squash plants looked beautiful. If you've been to my garden, you can see the trellis that I have up and just the beautiful way the squash grew over it and just filled it with beauty. My garden in that was beautiful in that area. But as the bugs crept in more and more, my squash leaves, they turned yellow. They wilted and they died. Thankfully, my plant set enough squash that I think we'll have a great crop, but it had me worried for a moment. Were we going to get any good fruit? Any at all? Why was I worried? For those with any common sense or even a brown thumb, they know if my squash plants were sick, their fruit's going to be sick, and I'm going to get bad fruit at best. In regards to the Christian life, we too can be compared to the squash plant. Only healthy plants can produce healthy fruits. Differently said, the fruit of a plant, or Christian, if you will, can only be of its genetic makeup. It can only produce what it is. You see, squash plants can't produce a tomato, just like a green bean isn't going to grow a watermelon. You know, that's kind of a ridiculous analogy, but it's true. You're not going to produce what you're not. See, Christ speaks about this concept really clearly in Matthew 7. So let's go and read it together. If you want to join me, Matthew 7, 10 through 20. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will recognize them by their fruits. You know, explicitly, Christ is talking about false prophets in this section. But I think we can reasonably expand that to all Christ followers. It's a clear pointing to we need to be really careful of what we're producing and how we're acting. You know, I see so many beautiful reflections of Christ and the life I've chosen as a Christ follower when I work in my garden. For every stage of the garden, malady that comes up, or joy in the harvest, each of these can produce a great metaphor for the Christian walk. See, Christ says you will know them by their fruit. Good trees, Christians, will produce good fruits. So I have to ask myself, and I would encourage you to ask yourself the same. Do you produce good fruit? Do you produce any fruit at all? Well, Christ has something to say about that too. And go ahead and take a look at what he says about that fig tree in Matthew 21, 18 through 22. See, that tree, it didn't produce any fruit, and Christ cursed it to its death. This isn't just a nice story about how we can be better or different. This is clearly Christ giving us some guidance on how we must look as his followers. It's not a call to perfection, but it is the truth of we can't be of his genetic makeup if we aren't producing good things. And we could switch it, and if you want to play the philosophical game of which came first, doing good things or the genes producing the good things. But we need to be offering and showing fruit that is good, that is Christ-like fruit, that is of the same genetic line as Christ. What are the good things? I'd encourage you to go read Philippians 4:8. That's a start. But also, because I think there are many folks that are doing good things, but even those that are actively working diligently, producing externally appearing good fruit for the Lord, they really must consider on a regular basis whether they're doing that work for Him, which makes it amazing fruit, makes it beautiful, the most beautifully tasting fruit, or are they doing it for themselves? Because that fruit looks shiny on the outside, but when you cut into it, it's brown and mushy and not good for anything. It's rotten. So as we move forward, as we go into this, continue in our week, we really should be considering what is the fruit that we're producing? Are we producing any fruit? And if we are producing it, is it good fruit or is it bad fruit? And if it's bad fruit, we ask God to transform that fruit. And if it's good fruit, we keep focusing on why we're producing that good fruit, and that's for Christ. With that, Trinity, I'm going to leave you this week and just say, I'm praying for you. I pray that we can all be on this journey together to produce good fruit. And I thank you that we're producing a lot of good fruit. Yeah, God bless you all.